Hello, everyone. This is Rick, and welcome to Astral Rescue of Texas Flood Victims. Before we get into it, just want to mention Patreon. If you're interested in supporting this channel, you can certainly do so on Patreon. When you join, you get the chat function, talk to everybody, a direct mail to me. You can ask me questions and offer other information. And there's advanced podcasts on Sunday and a link in the description. So if you're interested, just go down to the description. Next up, astral projection lessons. If you'd like a lesson to learn how to astral project, be glad to work with you. Work with folks all over the world now. And if that's something of interest, just go down to the description. There's an email there. Just ask for more information. And just want to mention that there's 2 podcasts a week here. There is one posted on Wednesday at 2 p.m. and Saturday at 9 a.m. And that's Eastern Time, U.S. Okay, let's get into it. Now, I am going to do my absolute best to maintain my emotional equilibrium, especially for the last person, which is always extra difficult for me. So bear with me. I am going to do my best to stay even. Okay, the astral rescue of Texas flood victims. Below are 3 souls I was able to help move on that passed during the Texas flood of 2025. I have changed their names and altered some minor details to protect their identity and privacy. I'm sure you understand that. Note that when you engage in rescue work, you must offer help in a way that is acceptable to the soul needing assistance. For instance, if you're aiding the soul of an atheist, it requires very different techniques than that of a religious believer. I've studied many different religions for this purpose. This data, together with telepathically gleaned information, is invaluable in this rescue work. Your own personal beliefs must be put aside during this process. You're there to assist them in moving on. You're not there to proselytize your beliefs to them. That's not the time and place for anything like that. If there ever is a time and place for something like that, it certainly isn't at that point. I arrived in the astral near the swollen banks of the river, where homes had been swallowed by the waters. My purpose was clear. My guide had assigned 3 different spirits to me, 2 adults and 1 child, who were still lost, afraid, and lingering too long in that lower astral haze. I could feel their presence like a tremor through my chest. First one I'll call the counselor. She was near what remained of a twisted telephone pole, its wooden corpse still half standing in the astral mirror of a drowned neighborhood. Her name was Dana, and she didn't know she was dead. Her essence flickered with confusion and cold determination, an interesting combination. I approached slowly. I said, Dana, I said that in a very gentle way, letting her name just, echo. She turned, eyes wide. How do you know my name? Have you seen any of our campers? The floodwaters were rising, and we were singing worship songs. After that, I must have fallen asleep. I am responsible for those girls, and I have to find them. You did everything in your power to safeguard those young girls, I said. You've passed on, Dana. The storm took you. She shook her head, which is very characteristic of many people in this kind of state. They have a hard time believing that they've, moved on, passed on from physical life. Because when you're in the lowest level of the astral, you feel like you still have a heavy body. Now, if you really think about it, you can find that you can see through your hands, for instance, but very few people think to do that. They're usually just very confused and quite often in denial. Anyway, like I said, she shook her head. No, I have to find our girls. They'll be scared and alone. I can't. I don't have time for this. I need to find them now. She wailed, tears rolling down her astral cheeks. I scanned her for information on the campers. You could say I sent a request for information to my angel guide as well. One of the girls she cared for was assigned to me. One of the campers was named Ellie, right? I asked. Yes, she exclaimed. Is she okay? Her expression of desperate hope hit me hard. I shook it off quickly. She needed a steady hand right now, not some emotional mess. Don't worry, I said. You have my sacred word of honor that I'll personally see that she is taken care of. You did everything you could. But now it's time to go. There's peace waiting. You don't have to be afraid. I reached toward her. At first, she hesitated, but then she took my hand, and her form shimmered like early morning fog. A golden thread of light opened behind her, and I watched as her spirit stepped into it, lighter now and free. My second assigned rescue person I'll call the old man. The floodwaters had long receded from the physical world, but on the astral plane, the aftermath still churned like a storm. Souls caught between realms don't always realize they've passed. Trauma, confusion, unfinished faith, these things hold them in place like a spiritual undertow. I found him in the shimmer between Earth and the next realm, the astral. In other words, he was in the lowest level of the astral, right sliver above physical life. You might say he was kind of in a silvery fog over a drowned stretch of East Texas. His soul looked like a man in his late 70s, tall but stooped, hair like smoke, eyes that flickered with desperation. That happens so often, it really hits you. Anyway, he wore a plaid shirt and muddy jeans, soaked even here. Many times that'll happen. They'll still be wearing the same clothes they were last wearing, and sometimes they even have blood on them. In this case, he was still soaked, as if he was still in his physical body in the middle of that flood. That's just an image that they generate for themselves. I don't know if it's just denial or if it's some sort of protective mechanism. I don't know, but that does happen. At any rate, he wore a plaid shirt and muddy jeans, and he was soaked, as I said, even there. His boots sloshed with every step as he wandered the fog, calling out, Jesus, Jesus, where are you? His voice cracked with both hope and fear. I think he was coming to the realization that he had passed, and since he was a religious individual, I guess he had expected Jesus to be there to meet him. That happens sometimes. I don't know why it happens sometimes and it doesn't happen others. That's above my pay grade. I didn't approach him at first. Some souls need space to exhaust the loops of their grief. Until they've gone through that grief space, it's almost like you're not even there. So they have to come to some sort of point in time where they've worked through that grief to some extent so that there's some sort of an opening that you can then contact them and get them to listen to you and what have you. He paused, looking around at nothing but ruin made of memory. A collapsed church steeple shimmered behind him, and it was the first Baptist church he must have known in life. Only the bell remained, ringing soundlessly. He still had that residual memory of that church, which probably was a big part in his life. And he remembered the bell, but I guess he didn't imagine it actually ringing. "Hello," I finally said, stepping out of the mists. He turned slowly, eyes searching me like I might be, the big guy. "You seen the Lord?" he asked. "Jesus Christ? I was calling him. I've been praying. I can't find my wife, can't find my truck. I think I'm lost." That's always kind of tough to hear a soul say that. But the good point is he's reached that point now where he realizes something's wrong. And he realizes that he's a bit lost. So when they realize that, then you can kind of gently start helping. Anyway, I nodded gently. "You are, but it's all right. I'm here to help." His face kind of twisted with a sort of pain. He said, I drowned, didn't I?" "Yes," I said, "during the flood." He looked down at his hands, flexed them like they were made of smoke. "I remember the water rose too fast. I climbed on the roof, prayed, sang the old hymns. Then it was like sleeping underwater." A tear slid down his translucent cheek. "I thought Jesus would come get me." I stepped closer and touched his shoulder. Not forcefully, just enough to kind of ground him a little bit. And I replied, "He sent me instead." He looked at me and he goes, "But you ain't him." "No," I said, "but I can take you to him if you're ready." The old man looked toward the vanished church. "I thought I'd wake up and he'd be here, white robes and all, arms open. I was a believer all my life, a deacon for 30 years, even preached when the pastor was sick. Why didn't he come?" When I encounter that type of a question, and you get that question from religious folks, especially like your older people who have this whole idea as to how things are supposed to work once they've passed. And you have to tread very lightly here because they're in a very delicate state at this point, and you don't want to try to change their mind on things that they've lived their whole life with these thoughts. Now is not the time for you to try to, bring them up to speed or what have you. I said, "He's always with you, but grief and fear can cloud your sight. Even faith can get tangled in expectation. You were waiting for a man in robes, but Jesus doesn't always show up like that, as he did in the stories." His eyes brimmed with some sorrow and confusion. I was a little bit worried at this stage. But then he asked, "So how do I find him now?" That's what I wanted to hear. I extended my hand. "Let me walk with you. We'll go together." He hesitated, and souls often do, because they're still pulled back to their old life in the physical. And they have to make the decision to let that go so they can progress further on. They cling to the little that they understand of the world. All they remember was their physical lifetime, and it can be a little difficult to just let that go, but it's necessary to move on. Believe me, I've seen souls that were trapped in that lower astral for a long time. It's pretty much hell, the way I look at it, being in that betwixt and between place. Anyway, but then I saw him kind of make a a decision. And he nodded and took my hand. The moment he did, the fog began to part. Light started to filter through, warm and golden, not from a sun, but from someplace deeper. As we walked, the mud on his boots began to fade. His soaked clothes dried and became radiant with memory, his Sunday best. The lost weight of confusion lifted from his face. See, he was letting go here. He was letting that old life go so he could move on. Now, all I could see at this point was bright light. But he said that he saw him with a capital H. He was apparently standing quietly at the edge of a grove of trees, glowing like the eternal morning. Barefoot, smiling, familiar. That's the thoughts that were passing through that old man's mind. No words passed between them. I didn't sense any telepathy, but I didn't think any were needed. The old man, he kind of shed another couple tears in the astral, but this time it was joy. He let go of my hand, and I think he ran to what he saw as Jesus, like a boy running to his father. Like I said, I didn't see, I just saw bright light. That's all I saw. I guess that's because that's what I was expecting. He was expecting something different. Anyway, my work was done here with this second gentleman. With the wind shifting in the astral air, I turned back towards the flood's residue. There was still one more person calling out that I had to help. Now, this one I'll call the girl. This one was by far the hardest for me because I can't stand to see little girls in any kind of pain or discomfort, much less in a situation like this. It required the ultimate in emotional control for me, and I hope I can maintain it when I read this to you of this experience. So hopefully, I'll do my best to keep myself under control here. When I return to my body, I'm not ashamed to say I did cry, but I'm not going to do that now. Anyway, the girl, she was deeper in. She was lost in memory. That often happens with folks who cross over, who are at first very confused, and they find themselves going back to old memories. Some people can be lost in old memories for a long time, but that's not healthy either. You might say it's kind of a protective mechanism that hopefully will last until some help comes. Anyway, she was lost in this memory of hers. I found her under an astral highway overpass that no longer existed in the physical world. But just because something exists in the astral doesn't mean it still exists in the physical, and vice versa, quite frankly. She sat on the concrete, legs crossed, talking to her stuffed otter as if it were alive. Her name was Ellie. She looked up at me and said, "Did the camp send you?" Her voice definitely, was a little bit shaky, but she was brave. It always surprises me that bravery can be found even in the youngest souls. We were singing songs and everyone was supposed to stay together. I tried to hold hands with the counselor, but I couldn't. Now I'm lost. "Hi, Ellie. I'm Rick, and I'm here to help," I said as I sat down beside her. That's a nice otter." She clutched it tighter. "The counselor said to stay put, but I think I got lost. I've waited and waited." I could feel the storm in her. I saw through her eyes the panicked last moments, the rushing waters, the sheer terror of being pulled from her known world. Sometimes, I said, people get separated even after life, but they always find each other again. Would you like to find your counselor and your friends? She looked up at me, eyes searching. They won't be mad at me for getting lost? At that point, I really had to rein my emotions in. This type of thing was always the most difficult to deal with. It's even difficult now. Anyway, they'll be happy to see you, I said, and showed her. A ripple of Dana's energy gently surrounded us. Remember, she was the counselor. Brushing Ellie's cheek like a kiss made of sunlight. The girl gasped, then smiled. Miss Dana. Now, she, I think, saw the counselor. I saw a bright light in the basic form of that counselor that I had just helped to go on. She's waiting. You don't have to wait anymore, I said. She stood clutching the otter. Will you come too? Another emotional edge. I'll walk with you to the edge. We walked towards the light. Different this time. It was shaped like a field of flowers blooming in fast motion, and Ellie stepped into it. She looked back once and waved. Then she was gone. The river below still raged, but at least I knew that I had helped 3 souls to find peace. And for now, that was enough. Okay, I hoped you benefited from that tale of those 3 flood victims that I was able to help. Once again, remember, I have changed their names and some small details about them and their life to protect their privacy. Anyway, if you did benefit from that, please hit the like button, share it with those of like minds, subscribe if you haven't already. And the vast majority of you already subscribed. Questions, comments, did these experiences affect you in any way? Why don't you share that? If you have any questions or anything that you think you would have done a little different, go ahead and offer that. I can always benefit from some good suggestions. Anyway, this is Rick, and I will see you on the astral plane.